Shady plot.
Shady Plot is a funny ghost story about a writer, John Hallock, who needs ideas for a ghost story. A ghost named Helen appears and says ghosts are on strike because people are disturbing them using Ouija boards. She tells John to stop his wife Lavinia from using one. Lavinia misunderstands and thinks Helen is another woman John is hitting. After some confusion and comedy, the truth comes out and everything is solved. John finally gets an idea for his ghost story.
I sat down to write a ghost story. Jenkins was responsible.
Hello,
He had said to me,
give us another on the supernatural this time. Something to give them the horrors that what the public wants. And your ghosts are a live proposition.
well, I was in no position to contradict Jenkins, for as yet his magazine had been the only one to print my stuff. So I had said precisely in the deepest voice I was capable of and had gone out. I had no idea, but at that time it did not worry me at all. You see, I had often been like that before, and in the end, things had always come my way. I did not in the least now. How or why it all had all been rather mysterious. You understand, I did not specialize in ghost stories, but more or less they seemed to specialize in me. A ghost story had been the first fiction I had written. Curious how that idea for a plot had come to me out of nowhere after I had chased inspiration in vain for months. Even now, whenever Jenkins wanted a ghost, he called on me, and I had found it healthy to contradict Jenkins. Jenkins always seemed to have an uncanny knowledge as to when the land of our Lord the Grocer was pestering me, and he doomed me for a ghost. And somehow I had always been able to dig one up of him, so I had begun to get a bit cocky as to my ability. So I had went home and sat down before my desk and sucked at the end of my pencil and waited. But nothing happened. Pretty soon my mind began to wander off on other things, decidedly unghostly and material things, such as my wife shopping and how on earth I was going to cure her of her alarming tendency to take every new fad that come along the work it to death. But I realized that would never get me any place, so I went back to staring at the ceiling. This writing business is a delightful, is not it? I said sarcastically at last, out loud too. You see, I had reached the stage of imbecility when I was talking to myself.
Yes, said a voice at the other end of the room.
I should say it is. I admit I jumped and then I looked.
Around.
It was twilight by this time, and I had forgotten to turn on the lamp. The other end of the room was full of shadows and furniture. I sat staring at it and presently noticed something just taking shape. It was exactly like watching one of these movies picture cartoons being put together. First an arm came out, then a bit of sleeve of shirt stiff with shirt waist, then a leg and a plaid skirt, until at the last there she was complete, whoever she was. She was a long and angular with enormous fishy eyes behind the big rimmed spectacles, and her hair in a tight wave at the back of her head and a jaw. Well, it would looked so solid that for a moment I began to doubt my very own senses and believe she was real after all. She came over me and stood in front of me and glared, yes, positively glared, down at me. Although I had never laid eyes on women before, to say nothing of giving her cause to look at me like that, I sat still, feeling pretty helpless, I can tell you, and at last she barked.
What are you gaping at?
I swallowed. Though I had not seen anything, nothing. I said absolutely nothing. My dear lady, I was merely waiting for you to tell me why you had come. And excuse me, but do you always come in sections like this? I should think you parts get mixed up with sometimes.
Did not you send for me?
She crisped. Imagine how I felt at that. Why, no, I do not seem to remember.
Look here, haven't you been calling on heaven and earth all afternoon to help you write a story?
I nodded, and then a possible explanation occurred to me, and my spine got cold. This was the ghost of a stenographer applying for a job. Had an advertisement in the paper recently. I opened my mouth to explain that the position was filled and permanently so, but she stopped me.
And when I get back to the office from my last case and was ready for you, did not you switch off the something else and sit there dribbling so I could not attract your attention until just now?
I am very sorry, really sorry.
Well, you need not be, because I just came to tell you to stop bothering us for assistance. You are not going to get it. We are going on a strike.
What?
You did not mean to yell at me.
I did not mean to yell, I said humbly, but I am afraid I did not quite understand you. You said you are going on a strike?
Don't you know what a strike is? Not another plot do you get from us.
I stared at her and wet my lips. Is where they have been coming from?
Of course, where else?
But my ghosts are not a bit like you.
If they were, people don't believe in them.
She draped herself on the top of my desk among the pens and ink bottles and leaned towards me.
In the other life, I used to write.
You did? She nodded. But that has nothing to do with my present form.
It might have, but I give it up at last for that very reason and went to work as a reader on a magazine.
She sighed and rubbed the end of her long eagle nose with a reminiscent finger.
Those were troubled days. The memory of them made me make getry to paradise. And at last, when I attained to present state of being, I made up my mind that something should be done. I found other who had suffered similarly, and between us we organized the Writers Inspiration Bureau. We shout around until we find a writer without idea and with a mind of sort enough to accept impassion. The case is brought to an attention of the main office and one of us assigned to it. When the case is finished, we bring in the report.
But I never saw you before.
And you won't have this time if I hadn't come to annoy the strike. Many a times I have leaned on your shoulder when you have thought you were thinking hard. I groaned and clutched my hair.
The very idea of the horrible scarecrow so much as touching me. Not my wife be shocked? I shivered. But she continued.
That's at an end. We have been called out of our beds a little too often in recent years, and now we are through.
But my dear madam, I assure you have had nothing to do with that. I hope I am properly grateful and all that you see.
Oh, it isn't you?
She explained patronizingly.
It's those Ouija board fanatics. There was a time when we had nothing much to occupy us and used to hunt a little on the side, purely for amusement, but not anymore. We have to give up haunting almost entirely.
We sit at the decks and answer questions now, and such questions. She shook her head hopelessly and taking off her glasses, wiped them and put them back on her nose again.
But what have I got to do with this?
She gave me a pitying look and rose.
You are to exert your influence, get all your friends and acquaintances to stop using the Ouija board, and then we will start helping you to write.
But there was a footstep outside my door.
John, oh John.
Called the voice of my wife. I waved my arms at the ghost with something of the motion of a beginner when leaning to swim. Madam, I must ask you to leave and at once consider the impression if you were seen here. The ghost nodded and began very sensibly. I thought to demoralize and evaporate First, the boggins or her feet grew misty until I could see the floor through them. Then the affection spread to her knees and gradually extended upward. By this time, my wife was opening the door.
Don't forget the strike.
She repeated, while her lower jaw began to disintegrate. And as my Lavinia crossed the room to me, the last vestige of her ear faded into space.
John, why in the world are you sitting in the dark?
Thinking, my dear.
Thinking, rubbish. You were talking out loud.
I remained silent while she lit the lamps. When I am nervous or excited, there is a muscle in my face that starts to twitch, and this pulls up one corner of my mouth and gives the appearance of a idiotic grin. So far, I had managed to conceal this affection from Lavinia.
You know, I bought the loveliest thing this afternoon. Everybody's wild over them.
I remembered her craze for taking up new fates, and the premonitory chill crept up the back of my neck. Isn't I began and stopped. I simply could not ask. The possibility was too horrible.
You would never guess in the world. It's the duckiest, darlingest Ouija board. And so cheap. Got it at a bargain sale. Why? What's matter?
I felt things slipping. Nothing, I said, and looked around for the ghost. Suppose she has lingered, and upon hearing what my wife had said, should suddenly appear like all sensitive women. Lavina was subject to hysteric.
But you looked so funny.
I always do when I am interested. I gulped. But don't you think that was thing to buy?
Foolish. Oh, John, foolish. And after me getting it for you.
For me? What do you mean?
To help you write your stories. Why, for instance, suppose you wanted to write an historical novel, you wouldn't have to wear your eyes out over those musty old books in the public library. All you would have to do would be to get out your Ouija and talk to Napoleon or William the Conqueror or Helen of Troy. Well, maybe not Helen anyhow. You would have all the local color you would need, and without a speak of trouble, and think how easy writing your short stories will be now.
But Lavina, you surely don't believe in Ouija board?
I don't know, John, they were awfully thrilling.
She had seated herself on the arm of my chair and was looking dreamily across the room. I stared and turned around. There was nothing there. I sank back with relief. So far, so good.
Oh, certainly they are thrilling all right. That's just it. They are a darn sight too thrilling. They are positively devilish.
Now, Lavinia, you had plenty of senses, and I want you to get rid of that things just as soon as you can. Take it back and get someone else. My wife crossed her knees and stared at me through narrowed lids.
John Hellock.
She said distinctly, I don't propose to do anything of the kind. In the first place, they won't exchange things bought at bargain sale, and in second, why?
If you are not interested in the other world, I am.
So there she slid down and walked from the room before I could think of a single thing to say. She walked very hurriedly. Just as soon I mentioned Ouija board, I felt things began to cloud up. So I decided to let it go for the present in the hope she must be more reasonable later. After suppose I had another try to writing, but as my mind continued to be a perfect blank, I gave it up and went off to bed. Next day was Saturday, and it began near the end of month and a particular busy day. I left home early without seeing Lavinia. Understand, I have quite reached 11, the point where I can decide my whole time to writing, and being bookkeeper for a lumber company does help with the grocery bills and pay for Lavinia's fancy shopping. Friday had been a half holiday, and of course, when I got back, the world was filled up pretty high, so I in the fact that ghosts and stories and everything else vanished in a perfect tangle of figures. When I got off the streetcar that evening, my mind was still churning. I remember now that I noticed even from the corner how brightly the house was illuminated. But at the time, that did not mean anything to me. I recall all. I went up the steps and opened the door. I murmured, 9 times 9 in 81. And then Gladiola met me in the hall.
Mr. Hallock, they Miska so thinks you lost. She says she done phone you this morning to be home early. But for the Lord's sake, not to stop to argufy now, but get ready for the company and come on down.
Some memory of a message given to me by one of the clerks filtered back through my brain, but I had been hunting their lost recipients at the time and had completely forgotten it. Company? Said stupidly. What company?
They miss us. Ouija board party.
And rolling her eyes, she disappeared in the direction of kitchen. Must have gone upstairs and dressed and come down again, for I presently found myself standing in the dimly light lower hall, wearing my second best suit and a fresh shirt and collar. But I have no recollections of the process. There was a great chattering coming from our little parlor, and I went over to the half open door and peered through. The room was full of women, most of them elderly women I recognized as belonging to my wife's book club. They were sitting in couples, and between each couple was a Ouija board. Mournful squeak of legs of the moving triangular thing on which they rested. Their fingers filled the air and mixed in with the conversation. I looked around for a ghost with my heart sunk down to zero. What if Lavinia should see her and go mad before my eyes? And then my wife came and tapped me on the shoulder.
John.
Said in her sweetest voice, and I noticed that her cheeks were very pink and her eyes were very bright. My wife is never so pretty as when she is doing something she knows I disapprove of.
John, dear, I know you'll help us out. Mrs. William Augustus Wainwright phoned at the last moment to say that she couldn't possibly come. And that leaves poor Hinkle without a partner. Now, John, I know some people can work a Ouija by themselves, but Mrs. Hinkle can't. And she'll just have a horrible time unless you.
I gasped. Me, I won't. But even as I spoke, she had taken my arm, and the next thing I knew, I was sitting with the thing on my knee, and Miss Hinkle opposite, grinning in my face la- like a flirtatious crocodile. I won't, I began.
Now, Mr. Hallock, don't be shy.
Miss Hinkle leaned toward and stuck a bony finger almost under my chin. I'm not. Only I saw I won.
No, it is very easy really. You just put the tips of your finger right here besides the tips of my finger.
And the first thing I knew, she had taken 30 in my hands and was coiling, holding them in the position desired. She released them presently. The little boat began to slide around in an aimless sort of way. There seemed to be some forcing tugging it about. I looked at my partner, first with suspicious and then with a vast relief. If she was doing it, then all that talk about spirits, oh, I did hope Miss Hinkle was cheating with that board.
Ouija, dear would want you tell us something.
She could, and on instant the things seemed to take life. It rushed to the upper left hand corner of the board and hovered within the front of the word. It rushed to the upper left hand corner on the board, hovered its front leg on the word. Yes, then it began to fly around so fast that I gave up the attention to the following it. My companion was bending forward and had started to spell out loud. Terriot, Terriot. Why? What does she mean? I don't know. I said desperately. My collar felt very tight.
But must mean something. Ouija dear, won't you explain yourself more fully? Ask him. Ask him. Ask you, Ouija.
I am going. I choked and tried to get up, but my fingers seemed stuck to that dreadful board, and I dropped back again. Apparently, Miss Hinkle had not heard my protest. The thing was going around faster than ever. She was reading the message silently, with her brown coat and the light of the heartress in the pale blue eyes.
Why, she says it's you, Mr. Hallock. What do you mean? Oija, won't tell us how it's taking.
I groaned, but that inexorable board continued to spell. I always did hate a spelling match. Miss Hinkle was again following it loud. Helen, Helen. She raised her voice until it could be heard at the other end of the room.
Lavinia dear, do you know anyone by the name of Helen?
By the name of I Can't Hear You.
And my wife made her way over to us between the books clubs.
You know, the funniest thing has
That happened.
She whispered excitedly.
Someone had been trying to communicate with John through Mrs. Hunt's and Mrs. Sparkle's Oija. Someone by the name of Helen. Why, is not that curious?
What is?
Miss Hinkle simpered.
Someone giving the name of Helen had just been calling for your husband here.
But we don't know anyone by the name of Helen.
Lavinia stopped and began to look at me, though narrow lids, much as she had done in the library the evening before. One of those 5 Ouija board was calling me by name. I felt my ears grow crimson, purple, maroon. My wife was looking at me as though I was someone peculiar insect. The squeak of Ouija board and the murmur of conversation rose louder and louder, and then I felt my face twitch in the spasm of that idiotic grin. I tried to straighten my wretched feature into their usual semblance of humanity. I tried and
Does not he look shy?
Mr. Henkel, and then I got up and fled from the room. I do not know how that party ended. I do not want to know. I went straight and upstairs and undressed and crawled into bed and lay there in a burning dark while the last guest gurgled in the hall below about the wonderful evening she had spent. I lay there while the front door shut after her, and Lavinia's step came up the stairs and past the door to the guest room beyond. And then, after a couple of centuries elapsed, the clock struck there, and I dozed off to sleep. At the breakfast table the next morning. Next morning, there was no sign of my wife. I concluded she was sleeping late, but Gladiolalia, upon being questioned, shook her head, muttered something, and turned the white eyes up to the ceiling. I was glad the meal was over and hurried to the library for another try at the story. I had hardly seated myself at the desk when there came a tap at the door and a white slip of paper slid down it. I unfolded it and read.
Dear John, I'm going back to my grandmother. My lawyer will communicate with you later.
I cried, "Oh, I wish I was dead." And
That's exactly what you ought to.
that horrible voice from the other end of the room. Sat up abruptly. I had sunk into a chair under the blow of the letter. Then I dropped back again, and my hair rose in a thick wrinkle on the top of my head. Coming majestically across the floor towards me was a highly polished pair of thick lace shoes. I stared at them in a sort of dreadful fascination, and then something about their gait attracted my attention, and I recognized them. "Here," I said sternly. "What do you mean by appearing like this?"
I can't help it.
Said the voice, which seemed to come from a point about 5.5 feet above the shoes. I raised my eyes and presently distinguished her round, protruding mouth. "Why can't you? A nice way to act, to walk in sections."
If you will give me time.
The mouth in the exasperated voice. "I assure you the rest of me will presently arrive."
But what's the matter with you? You never acted this way before.
She seemed stung to make a violent effort, for a portion of her fishy eye and the end of her nose popped into a view with a suddenness that made me jump.
It's all your fault.
She glared at me, while part of her hair and her plaid skirt began slowly to take form. "My fault?"
Of course, how can you keep a lady up working all night and then expect her to retain all the faculties the next day? I'm too tired to material
Then why did you bother?
because I was sent to ask when your wife is using to get rid of that Ouija board.
Should I know? I wish to heaven I would never seen you. I cried. Look what you have done. You have lost me, my wife. You have lost me, my home and happiness. You have.
Mr. Hallock,
Came from the hall outside,
Mr. Hallock is going quiet. I don't like no hoodoos.
and the steps retreated. You have lost me, my cook.
I didn't come here to be abused.
Mostly cloudy. I and then the door opened and Lavinia entered. She wore the brown hat and coat she usually travels in and carried a suitcase which she set down on the floor. That suitcase had an air of solid finality about it, and its lock leered at me bracily. I leaped from my chair with unaccustomed agility and sprang in front of my wife. I must conceal that awful phantom from her at any risk. She did not look at me or thank heaven behind me, but fixed her injured gaze upon the waste bucket as if to wrest dark secret from it.
I have come to tell you that I am leaving.
She staccatoed. Oh, yes, yes, I agreed, flapping my arms about to attract attention from the corner. That's fine, great.
So you want me to go, do you?
She demanded. Yes, right away. Change of air will do you good. I will join you presently. If only she would go till Helen could depart. I would have the devil of the time explaining afterwards, of course, but anything would be better than to have Lavinia see a ghost. Why, that sensitive little woman could not bear to have a mouse say boo at her, and what would she say to the ghost in her own living room? Lavinia cast a cold eye upon me.
You are acting very queerly,
She sniffed.
stealing something from me.
Just then the door opened and Gladiola called.
Miss Hallock, I have come to tell you is done left this place.
But why, Gladolia?
I am not staying round no place long with them Oisa board contraptions. I see scared of hoodoos is done gone I is.
Is that all you have got to complain about?
Lavinia inquired.
Yes, ma'am.
Then go back to the kitchen. You can use the board for kindling wood.
Me touch dating. No, ma'am, never.
I'll be the coon to burn it. I shouted, I'll be glad to burn it.
Gladolia's heavy steps moved off kitchenward.
Then my Lavinia turned waspishly to me again.
John, there is not a bit of use trying to deceive me. What is it you are trying to conceal from me?
Who? Me? Oh no, I lied elaborately. Look around to see if that dratted ghost was concealed enough. She was so big, and I am rather a smallish man, but that was a bad move on my part.
John,
Lavinia demanded like a ward boss.
you are hiding somebody in here. Who is it?
I only waved Daniel and gurgled in my throat. She went on.
It's bad enough to have you flirt over the Ouija board with that hussy.
Oh, that affair was quite overboard, I assure you. My love thrust me back with sudden muscle.
I will see who is behind you. Where is that Helen?
Me, I am Helen.
Came from the ghost. Lavinia looked at the apparition, that owl-eyed phantom, in plaid skirt and striped shirtwaist, with hair sewed back and no powder on her nose. I threw a protecting, husbandly arm about her to catch her when she should faint, but she did not soon. A broad, satisfied smile spread over her face.
I thought you were Helen of Troy.
She murmured.
I used to be Helen of Troy, New York.
Said the ghost.
Now I'll be moving along. If you will excuse me. See you later.
With that, she telescoped briskly till we saw only a hand waving farewell. My Lavinia fell forgivingly into my arms. I kissed her once or twice fervently, and then I shoved her aside, for I felt a sudden strong desire to write. The sheets of paper on my desk spread invitingly before me. I have got the bulliest plot for the ghost story, I cried.